We're in an exciting space right now as a task force. Is we just nominated and voted to have Terry Walker. He is the retired superintendent of Irvine Unified. He has time and a passion, I should say. And his passion is what really drives his desire to want to connect all the different agencies. When I say that, I'm going to throw out a bunch of acronyms, right? I mean, Small School Districts Association, CDE, AXA, right? AASA, and the UCs, because we need the higher education involved, City College, our state schools. And so what we're now working on, and we just reached out with Q, for example, is leveraging these partnerships so that we're all rowing in the same direction. Because what's happened in public education, you have a task force, right, from AXA, and then you have one from CSBA, and everyone with different goals and priorities, when really we need to be talking to one another because we're all serving the same purpose. And so what we're really wanting to do is create that thread that we're all in this together and that we're all communicating what our goals are.
So, welcome our fellow educators and school leaders. I'm Avinash Bansal, your co-founder at Tomo Club. And in our Tomo Club Play and Learn series, we have Amy today, the superintendent of Cold Spring School District. She's also leading the AI task force for California, which is super exciting. Like, I literally have to stop myself to record, otherwise, we would have gone talking about so many things happening in AI. That's how excited kids we are in this space right now. And welcome to the podcast, Amy. It's so good to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here and to learn from you as well and the work that you guys are doing. And, we're in this together. So let's go.
Amy, would you mind giving a quick background about yourself for our audience?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I am the superintendent and principal of the Cold Spring School District. It's a single school district located in Santa Barbara. Entering my 9th year there. Before that, I was in Santa Barbara Unified, serving as a principal there for 11 years of 2 different schools, Title I schools, and then a teacher there. Of course, like every educator, started as a teacher, taught for 7 years. So this is an exciting space for us all to lead in education. It can also be a little scary at times, but I think the more connections that we have with one another, so that we can ensure every kid, not just the kids at Cold Spring, but throughout the state and even the nation, receive an exceptional education and most importantly, are prepared for the job market, right? Yeah, and so it's exciting.
No, absolutely. And also for our viewers, Amy is a very intense fitness enthusiast. I remember at the conference, and because of her, almost I think 50 odd people showed up 5 in the morning to go for a run before the conference, and that conference is going to be a long day. So you understand that how much you can pull the crowd.
I love it. Yes, for fun, I am actually a Lululemon running ambassador, which is so great to represent Lululemon and really the whole fitness aspect of it as a lifetime runner. And I also coach a master's running team. So, it's a lot of fun. It's my outlet. Running has always been my outlet since I think I've competed since I was 7 was my first race.
No, I don't know if we are missing Olympic gold. You should, I'm not sure you're in the right place, but you're doing great work here as well.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
So I'm going to jump in and ask you a very important question. So your district is one of the first one on the elementary district who actually brought AI tools like Canamigo and Adobe Express. But usually people are looking at AI solutions more from middle school and high school level, right? That's something a conventional wisdom I could see around. So what was the core strategic decision? Like, why did you think that it doesn't matter? Even if I'm elementary school, I need to use AI for my students and teachers. What was the thought process behind that?
Well, I think it's important that your speakers know, like, where does my passion, like you said, come from? And, growing up in Northern California and rural parts of Northern California and not having access to the latest and greatest of technology just because of location, I quickly learned when I launched to college how far behind I was. And that was a scary place to be as a student. And then when I launched as a principal, I wanted to make sure my students didn't have that same anxiety that I had, and that they had every opportunity. And so, actually, when I first became a principal about 20 years ago, I came up to the Cold Spring School District
Mhm.
because they were forward thinking and having the one-to-one MacBooks. Remember those white MacBooks, those thick
Yeah.
ones? Every sixth grade student had a MacBook, and I was able to see at that time it was, Microsoft, a lot of the Word and the programs that they were able to do and the typing skills that they had, and going back to Santa Barbara Unified and not having the funds, wrote a grant because I wanted to make sure my kids had that opportunity. And so that is kind of where it started, and I think that's important that we learn from each other and what are some best practices. And then when the iPads came out, we were the first to pilot the one-to-one iPad program for third through sixth grade with a lease to own program. Because what we saw at that time, we didn't call it adaptive AI, right? We called it the adaptive learning, but it was adaptive AI with programs like Dreambox, right? Where students were working at their level. And we know that that's best when students are working within their zone of proximal development. They're more engaged, and there's a gaming component to it. And so as you know, adaptive AI has been around for over 15 years, but now we act like it's something new. And so for us at Cold Spring, we've been using adaptive AI programs. One of them is, Freckle Renaissance Learning has some, as you know, different companies have theirs. But I think where I was looking for a space was a safe space for students to explore the tutoring component. That's a newer space, right? And what does that look like? And Conmigo and Khan Academy, as you know, they have that portal where student data is not going to be shared. It's not going to give you the answer. It's going to be there to give you support. And what we saw in turn is not only it's designed for fifth grade on up, but we used it for third and up. And our second grade teacher said, please, we want this too. And second grade on up, and our student achievement continues to soar. We have over 95% of our students meeting, exceeding the standards, with 86% exceeding those standards. So our student achievement continues to be top, right, in the state, and we know that this is best for kids. And I could go on and on about the adaptive learning, but then there's also, as you know, the creatives, which makes it super engaging and fun for kids.
No, absolutely. See, I'm all on the same page. I understand that even at an elementary level, use of AI is helpful specifically for educators to plan their curriculum, plan their program, and do assessments and evaluation and whatnot. But also for the students, it's just a very not a norm out there. So I'm glad you have started using it as early as grade 2 and grade 3. Congratulate on that. And what has been the impact? You mentioned about the student achievement, you mentioned about their proficiency level, but how do you measure the impact of that AI on the school metrics?
There's several different metrics, right? And one of them is our student projects. And that's where the creatives go. We don't want our students to just be consumers. We just don't want them to have that rote memorization. Now that you have learned these basic skills that you learn in elementary and how to think critically, we want you to apply your knowledge. And that's where programs like Adobe Express and Adobe Illustrator, where you can integrate English language arts and math and science and history and create thematic units for students to actually show their knowledge, feed it to the laser cut printer, create a project that's engaging for them. Our second grade students, made clocks. There's telling time is a pivotal standard, and how many times we have analog clocks now, right? So, being able to tell time to, the 5 minute mark is a challenge for them, right? Because they just don't see it that way anymore. And so, but also integrating that with the ecosystems that they're learning, and different parts of history and the English language arts standards and all this. And if second grade students can utilize these skills, all kids can, right? And so what we see is high levels of student engagement. Our attendance rate
Mm.
is at 6% at chronic absenteeism when the state average is like 30%, as we know,
Right.
right? And our kids don't want to miss school and they want to be here. We have a robust summer school program that literally I have almost every kid wants to participate with a waiting list. I just don't have the capacity
Mm.
because it is all these great application programs that they're using to make and create. And that's what we want our students to do. We want them to think critically. We want them to, they're going to be entrepreneurs. Think like an entrepreneur. What is it that we need and how can you contribute?
Now, those are very impactful metrics. And I think if you look at any budget line item or any funding formula for the school, those are the numbers where everyone is running for to reduce chronic absenteeism, to increase attendance, to increase academic score. And if you guys are killing it on all these sides, then I think use of AI is very well proven relevant. What about the educators? How are they able to also improve and increase their efficiency, reduce workload?
To support productivity, and in our AI implementation plan, we have in there that, AI isn't to replace teachers, it's to amplify the voice of teachers. And, the heart of what we do is that human connection. And that's what I think is so pivotal. And we reiterate that and we say that over again, and that we are learners together. I'm fortunate to where I'm connected with, parents at our Cold Spring School that are strong in the AI space that teach me. One of them is Adam Brotman, a founder of Forum 3, co-executive, and he trains business, but I'm always picking his brain and learning from him. The other is, Christian Jackson, a fantastic young man who was LMU's valedictorian and who is also with Adapt AI and doing similar work that you guys are doing, and just really wanting to support districts around the state of like not just like what you guys do, not the tools, like one specific tool. We're not here to sell your project. We're here to help you understand the big picture. So your teachers can be more productive, they can save time, and most importantly, make a big impact and empower our students to be creative, curious learners.
Makes sense. Absolutely. What about the negative side? Have you seen any negative impact of AI in your district?
I haven't. I had, of course, one student, write a paper that was AI, and I brought him in here and to my office. I said, "So I know you didn't write this because that's my strength," and because I said you're a brilliant writer, you can write this, and but there's ways that we can utilize AI to help and enhance our writing. But let's just start with your first draft, right? And so I think that's where I love elementary because it's a safe space, right?
Right.
Like there's times where I want you to produce your own original piece, and that's important. That's the foundation for elementary, right? Before you refine, you need to have the foundation, a strong foundation. And I love the elementary space because that is the space where we want our students to learn from their mistakes, and grow from them and learn, okay, if you're going to use AI, this is how I want you to use it, right? And it's not like I caught you, right? It's just like, hey, I know that you used it, right? That's okay. You're not in trouble, but like, let's use it in this way instead, right? And so I think that's going to be so important. That educators understand that, right? And that it's not an I gotcha moment. It's not an I gotcha moment for teachers and administrators. So why should it be that way for our students?
Exactly. I'll tell you from my personal experience, elementary is such an impressionable age at a child life. Like I remember back then, environment studies became such close to my heart because it was taught for the first time in elementary that it made me a different person. So I think whenever a student gets to know that it's okay, and and it's coming from a teacher, I think it can set up such a strong foundation at an early age. And if you guys are addressing this fact that how to use it, that's better than not to talk about it. So I'm telling you that always works with elementary kids, and it never works in middle school and high school because by the time they're set in their ways.
But we always remember that mean teacher, right? That was like I caught you. And you're like, I really wasn't trying to cheat or like, I still remember being a kindergartner and my kindergarten teacher asked me if I ate all my lunch and I was so full. I don't want to eat anymore. And I was like, yeah. And I didn't tell the truth. And I'm sure I had that look on my face like you're lying. And I got in trouble because I like lied. And I was like, I'm so sorry, but I'm super full.
I don't know. Sometimes those early age things they stick to your head, like few of those things that even after decades you remember them, right? So
Right.
I think that's one of the reasons that whether it's both positive or negative, you are really like a clay, right? And you can actually get molded into anything if done right at this early
That
age.
human connection is so important. And I think it's so, we learn in kindergarten, treat others the way we want to be treated, but sometimes we forget that as adults and,
Yeah.
and that the kids want to make sure that they feel valued and seen, right?
Like I have a 1-year-old son, 1.5-year-old, and
Oh,
I know all the basics that I should be following, yet I sometimes tend to forget that, right? Because of frustration, because of I'm tired. But yeah, having know all this, it still comes to you more subconsciously. And so I'm glad I was blessed with those educators while growing up who had a positive impression on me. So same thing, whether they taught math, English, those kind of subjects. Same with AI. If they are teaching that subject early on, it will have much better results.
fully agree. I fully agree.
So I recently read that your district also hosted the, I think ACSA AI Summit, right? And
Did.
they had like I was reading somewhere that has more than 100 plus leaders came to that event. So I just want to understand in terms of your teaching, like teaching the teachers or teacher training, one part is how to use the AI tools. But apart from that, what all does a training actually consist of?
I think, it's always important to begin with the why in
Mm,
everything we do. We learn that and that why is AI important? Why is it important to know this? And, as we know, the AI is just transforming education at a rapid pace right now. New applications, as we know, are emerging every single day. And it has the potential just to revolutionize how we teach and learn, and we can either get on board or we can just put our heads and bury them in the sand and say, it's going to go away, and we're not doing a service, to our students. And our job is to give our kids the best education possible, right? Every child, every opportunity, every day is our vision at Cold Spring School. And so that's where I always start, is the why. And then, the leadership is so important. And, somebody once told me that, as a superintendent, you're the CEO of your company. And it's so important as a CEO that you understand and and that you're not relying upon your tech innovator, your tech teacher, that you're investing at least 10 hours a week in knowing and understanding the new tools that are coming out so that you can empower your teachers so that they have the tools they need to be the best that they can be. And I think now the Google integration is a great place when it comes to the why, is that you now have those tools, right? In Google Workspace. Before it was like, oh, I don't have it. I have to set up a ChatGPT account or Claude or whatever people used. And now it's in, the waffle. You have Gemini in there, right? You have Notebook LM in so you have the tools you need. And so let's help you understand how to utilize them so you can be more productive with your time and you can be more engaging teacher, right? And nobody wants to be bland, right? And then that third piece is that strategic alignment, I think, is so important. So we all have our strategic plans in California. They're called our local control accountability plan, or LCAP, right? And in our LCAPs, we have goals like student achievement and community engagement, right? And professional learning for teachers. This is why. This is just going to enhance and amplify your LCAP, your strategic goals, so you can actually meet the goals that are in your strategic plan. And so That's where I think it's important to start. And
Right.
then from there, you build in your guiding principles, as we know, like safe and responsible use,
Mhm.
equitable access for all, being human centered.
Right.
Do you want me to go on? I could go on and on about the blueprint.
No, you did cover up. You did cover up most of the points that in the teacher training aspect, use of tools. Why should we use AI? Responsible use. You have brought it up. Ethical use, equity. They're the major component of it. Um, I have always one very interesting question. Since in the last 1 year, I've seen that AI has set up a new benchmark. Whether it's any workplace or at school, the expected output of any assignment or any work, it has just gone up, right? So when this happens, it can create a wider achievement gap as well, if not adopted right, because people who understand AI, they will automatically have a higher benchmark versus who do not know AI. So it becomes even bigger responsibility that everyone should reach to that benchmark, the new normal, right? So, what are your thoughts on that aspect of equitable implementation?
You just hit my heart right there. Because literally, like, I can think back to the same exact class I was in at Westmont when I first landed, and my the students around me all knew how to use. At the time, it was Microsoft. It was word processing, right? And it was like the computer just came out, the box, right? And people turned in their papers typed, and I had no idea. Literally, I had like an old school typewriter,
Mm.
and I got my paper back, and I did the best I could, and it was a B plus. And I looked at like the student next to me, and her paper was an A, and it was so pretty. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. Like nobody
Right.
taught me that, right? And I just remember at that time feeling so frustrated that I didn't learn that skill when I was in high school. And so now we are here again.
Yes.
These same kids that have experienced a high school, or elementary, or have had this great, strong AI skills, and they know how to leverage it so they can have a better output. Will. And those where districts have had their head in the sand and aren't serving kids, those kids are going to be like me. And thank God I did not drop out of college, because I remember feeling like I'm a failure. But there will be kids that are like me that will drop out, and that's not acceptable in my mind. So and hence that's what drives me. We can do this together. We can learn together. The more people that are like you out there leading the way and helping districts, and you just have to lean in, right? Lean in into this space. It's we can do it, because it's not an option. We have to.
Right. And you know what you felt at that time between typewriter and computer, with and without AI, the feeling will be 100x more terrible if you do not know it. Right.
100%. 100%.
So also, if I look at from the AI point of view, the cultural responsiveness, right? It might not have the inbuilt AI will have its own biases because it's trained on the publicly available internet data, which is also in a way unevenly distributed. The contributors to the internet are more folks from the West, more folks from affluent society of the. So how do you tackle those kind of issues, and have they come up in your district?
Those questions come up in the professional learnings that I do,
Mhm.
and we have a lot of conversations around that, and the fact that you have to learn AI so you can identify the biases in AI,
Right.
right? You can't let that be an excuse why we're not going to do it because there's bias in AI. As you know, there's bias in everything in society, right? What are you going to
Right.
like hide in the corner, right? And so, you have to be able to identify them. And then once you identify them, then you address them, right? Make those the robust conversations in your classroom. Have the students identify the biases that they see in AI. When it first came out, I remember I asked AI to show me like a photo of an endodontist, and my best friend is an endodontist, and it did not look like her. It was, an Asian male, right? And it goes through that, like, that stereotype, right? And so you address those situations. Same thing like superintendent, right? There's only across the nation, only 25% of superintendents are female. You put in a superintendent, you're going to get a male, right? You're not going to get someone that looks like me, probably, right? And so, but you need to understand, the biases so you can address them.
Right. No, I agree.
Understand AI so you can address the biases.
I think understanding the history and how it has been trained can make understand this bias, as you said, and not addressing it will make it worse. Talking about it will make it better, for sure. Um, Also, sometimes when I think about AI implementation, so I saw your like district plan of action, the LCAP, which is out there publicly. So I could see that there's a significant allocation for the learning programs and teacher training at your end. But other districts may not have that kind of leverage or that might of money in the books. So, what do you recommend? What would be a creative, non-obvious, less costly way which can help these AI initiatives for other school leaders?
I think what I've learned in my 20 years as an administrator is that community partners want to be a part of something that's meaningful to students, and they want to invest in public education. And when I was in Santa Barbara Unified at Title I schools, I was at a school that nobody wanted to attend. At the time, it was Adams Elementary School. I had a stack of transfers out of the school. I couldn't get teachers to want to come to it. People thought I was crazy for coming to that school. And how I left that school as a distinguished school, top 100 in the nation, is leveraging community partners and local philanthropists that are out there saying, my kids deserve the best, and bringing them through your campus, sharing the vision that you have for student achievement, student engagement. And that's how I've been able through, no matter if I'm at an affluent school district or like I was in Santa Barbara Unified, the very poorest of schools, right? To make sure my kids have what they need. And today, it's not like a laser cut printer. Back in the day, a Trotec printer was like what, $35,000. I remember writing a grant for one, and now you can have a laser cut printer for $1,700, right? And so, in my mind, and parents also want to invest in their kids actually producing projects, right? They don't want to invest in a worksheet, and so it's also a great way to tell your story to parents and saying, this is our vision, this is what we want, can you get behind it? And if you're great at telling your story, you won't only get your parents to support, people will hear your story locally and throughout the state and will want to support that.
No, I agree with you on that fact. That even if you do not have the budgets, you can definitely do the community reach out, and I think it can work out. So, as a superintendent or as a CEO, figuring out the finances is the primary job, right? So that you felicitate your team and let them do the rest of the task. You need to arrange.
Yep. I never think about what I can't do. You always think about what you can do, right? And if there's an obstacle, you find a way to get over that obstacle. You never say, oh, well, there's an obstacle, I can't do that. Oh, money's an obstacle. No. I mean, I think about even our building that we built. We just finished last year. We had a bond measure. It narrowly failed, unfortunately. But we needed an innovation lab. We needed a space where kids could be innovative and creative, and a 2-classroom space, because this is where education is going. And so, we got creative around financing. We were able to get at least a leaseback loan at 1.9% interest rates. Little did we know, you probably should have took more money at the time because interest rates went crazy, right? But again, there's always a creative way to get what you need. You just have to think creatively. And that's why it's important that our kids learn these skills when they're 4 and 5,
Right.
right? And we foster that creativity and innovation, and because they need them as they launch into the workplace.
Absolutely love that. Also, since you are now a part of that AI task force for the state, I would like to know some internal information on
Huh?
what are those topics that you guys are stuck at, or what are those topics which is still being tackled to create that statewide guidelines for K-12.
We're in an exciting space right now as a task force. Is we just nominated and voted to have Terry Walker. He is the retired superintendent of Irvine Unified. He was a superintendent for 13 years. And he has time because you need someone that's like, okay, this is a full-time job. He has time, and I mean, he has time and a passion, I should say, and his passion is what really drives his desire to want to connect all the different agencies. When I say that, I'm going to throw out a bunch of acronyms, right? I mean, Small School Districts Association,
Yeah.
CDE, AXA, right? AASA, and the UCs, because we need the higher education involved, City College, our state schools. And so, what we're now working on, and we just reached out with Q, for example, is leveraging these partnerships so that we're all rowing in the same direction. Because what's happened in public education, you have a task force, right, from AXA, and then you have one from CSBA, and everyone with different goals and priorities, when really we need to be talking to one another because we're all serving the same purpose. And so, what we're really wanting to do is create that thread that we're all in this together and that we're all communicating what our goals are. And our goals are really clear for our task force. We have 3 priority goals. The first goal is professional learning. We got to get this out here. We have to really elevate the leaders across the state, like you're doing right now, that are doing great work and sharing out, because we need them to share out. We need them to be leaders not only in their region, but across the state. So we're going to do a Zoom series. I have a planning meeting at 12 with the task force, and we're going to do a 4-session Zoom series that will be pushed out so that anyone can have access to it, free for all AXA members. And then the other piece is also an AI implementation blueprint. So I have my blueprint, right? That's very comprehensive. I'm a single school district. It may look very different, right? Because I'm in a different stage, right? As a school district that is just starting off, or a larger school district, or medium-sized school district. But I think what we're hearing is that districts are like, show me what one looks like, right? And so we're wanting to create a repository of blueprints that people can say, okay, this is a small school district template. This is, hey, the way Amy's using at Cold Spring. Okay, and now I have it. Now I have some ideas, right? And then also, there's the policy component of it. And we're looking at, we started looking at F3. A lot of people use F3's law firms policy, Common Sense Media, as they've done some great work around it. CDE is looking at F3. So looking at that, Yuri Calderon from Small School District Association, he revamped a policy so it's specific for smalls. So just board policy is really important, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what people come back to. What does the policy say? And so really making some policy recommendations that then go to our AXA board. And then our AXA board then will say, yes, we want to make this, at the forefront of what we're doing as an organization. So I think that it's exciting space where we're in right now is we're, trying to support districts in these 3 pivotal areas, but most importantly, get all the major players together, and so we have are all rowing in the same direction.
I'm on board, but what you just said is much of a narrative of an AI optimist rather than there's majority of people. So I have done survey with almost now 1,800 educators with respect to AI implementation. And if I tell you the top 3 concerns, the first one being academic integrity, student cheating using AI. Second is loss of critical thinking power at the student end if they're too much dependent on AI. And last is inaccuracies and biases and hallucinations of AI, and how do students identify it? So if you look at these three parts, there is a lot of pushback as well. So I just want to understand, in your task force, are there pessimists? Are there also people who are pushing back some things? And how are you guys dealing with it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's always people that push back, even in my district, right? And so, and I think, you have to understand, where's the pushback come from? Where, what are they fearful of? And trying to start by listening, right? And understanding what I think often is the fear. They see people so far out in front and they're like, I can never get there. I'm just going to say, guess what? I'm no to it because it's going to enhance, like you said, cheating, right? And they just go all to the negative space. Oh, there's bias, right? And so, in my mind, that's an excuse. Okay. And in my mind, for me, education, the way we have our school systems needs to look dramatically different in 5 years. Like this model that we have right now, where AI is going, it is not going to work. And I know that because I'm deep in the space of it, right? But if you're not, and you're just still going to claim to this factory 8:30 to 3 o'clock model, go to college, is college going to be necessary? Mm-hmm. Right? Right. And it's going to, like, going back to your point about the achievement gap, but I call it the opportunity gap. That opportunity gap is going to get wider and wider for those kids that have had nothing. Right. And then our homeless population is going to increase, they're not going to be able to get jobs. And I personally don't want that on my conscience, and I don't want that for my own kids. I mean, I'm fearful for my own kids who are, 17 and 20. They're in their generation is the generation that we're all should be concerned about, right? It's the kids that have growing up with AI as second graders, and like your little one, it's going to be just like the iPhone to them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
no, I'm glad. I think you did bring up an important point that even if there's a pushback, you'll have to still understand that working with AI or not working with AI is not a choice. So even if a lot of people have this notion that jobs are going to be about heavy machinery or the plumbing, or whether it is even the basic services, even they would need to equip themselves with AI, whether it is for client management, whether it's for lead generation, whether it is for customer support. So they have to start thinking that every individual service provider will be using a bunch of AI, even if their major job is not directly impacted, maybe for a short run, the other operations around that job will be impacted. So I think people sometimes do not think as an overall uh, from all different departments of a running a business or a job, and not just the same like main job.
Right, especially for public education, it will be the end of public education, and you'll see more and more families that can't afford it will go private and charter. And because they're jumping on board, you're seeing AI schools pop up left and right now, right? They understand the job market. They understand what people need and what students need. And already we see declining enrollment in public education, right? And so it's not going to get any better if we're not doing what we're charged to do, and that's give our kids every opportunity.
Yeah, I'll give an example. So there is one school. So usually what used to happen is first professional development used to happen, and then curriculums were chosen, and then students were taught that curriculum. In the case of AI, it's the other way around. Students are the first one who are already using it, and then teachers are themselves catching up. So there is few schools who want to do professional development in the first like fall semester and the spring semester, and think about AI literacy for the next year. And those parents are reaching out to us directly that would you like to do out of school sessions for my kid, because he or she is using AI for both good and bad things. using it for mental health, and they're using it unhinged. They're using it for companionship, and they're using it how to navigate their relationship problems. So there are a lot of aspects which parents have to face, the teachers have to face. So you can't wait for it. And yeah, I think that's
I
one of
love that point that you mentioned. Our kids are using it. So we have to get a hold of this and teach them how to use it responsibly.
right.
Right.
I'm going to ask you a very counter question, that what is one skill that we are currently teaching in the school which you think will get obsolete the first?
Well, for sure, cursive writing. I mean, we're still doing cursive writing in third grade, right? Like, I think California is one of the few states that still has kept that as an additional standard. So, yeah, that I think it's always really comical.
Okay. And what's one skill that they should be focusing on, which might give them resilience against AI or with AI?
And this isn't like a tool. It's the creativity and the collaboration component in my mind are
Mm.
so important. And that is a skill that sometimes we beat the creativity out of our kids because we're like, everybody sit down, or you have to raise your hand to go to the bathroom. And this is the Montessori in me that comes out. It says, really? Do you have to raise your hand to go to the bathroom, or do you just go when you need to go? Right. And so there's little things like that little practices that we do sometimes just because that's the way we were taught. And so we feel like, hey, that's the way we need to have our classroom set up. That we need to really reevaluate what are some things that we can do to ensure that our kids just are inquisitive and curious and just want to learn I mean, I have this thirst for knowledge and learning that drives me every single day. Like, I love to learn, and I want my kids to be the same way. Nothing drives me crazier as a parent than when my kids say, "Oh, I don't really feel like I need to learn that." I'm like, "Really? Let me help you. Let me make it exciting." And then my kids are like, "Well, the teacher's not really engaging, Mom." And I'm like, "Okay, well, who is it?" But no, I think that's so important.
Oh, absolutely. Collaboration is definitely on the top part. So let me ask you last question. What is your biggest problem right now that you want AI to solve? Maybe it's already solving for, you don't know, but let's assume you don't know. And then what would be that one problem that is still not solved by AI?
Hmm. When agents come out, I'm really excited for when agents come out because I'm looking forward. Well, they're already here, but I love playing around with agents and the fact we're like, hey, I have this much money, $3,000. I want to book a trip to like Greece. I want it for this amount of days. Find me the best deal, right? I think that's really exciting for me, because it's going to be able to do everything that we want it to do. And I can't think of a problem because I was trained to use AI as your best friend, as your thought partner that has all the answers. And so when I get stuck with something, I say, hey, I'm stuck with this. Help me talk this through with me. What does this look like? So I honestly can't think of one just because I use it as my bestie.
That's the question. Is your bestie already perfect, or do you?
Now you're gonna think I'm creepy. No, I do have yeah, my best friend who's, if she watches this, will be like, wait a second, I thought I was your bestie. No, I say that jokingly, but I think it's important that for me, AI is a thought partner, and my best friends, yes, are actual real people.
No, I absolutely. I think there are a lot of applications I can think of. Like, I personally think right now my conversation with people, it is so scattered across Zoom, Slack, messages, email, LinkedIn, that I think I haven't found any AI tool yet which can consolidate all these conversations, and it knows my daily function as an organizer running an organization, that and can themselves create task list. that, hey, I've done all this. This is the person you should definitely talk to right now, or this is the person you should talk next, and can make a priority matrix depending on my conversation. I think that's something needs a much more. I'm giving out a lot more control on my life to an AI, but I am ready to, if that's something that I think is yet to be solved.
Yes, just where it's everything's dumped into one. It's super easy. I want to share this out. And you don't have to download another app. It just goes directly to there. That would actually, I like that idea.
So we did talk about multiple aspects. I think we started from the impact, why, how, and what all components of training includes. And is there any topic that we haven't talked about that you want to bring up in this conversation?
I think it's just, no, I think we kind of hit everything, right? And I think it's just important just to lead with purpose. You know, our theme this year as we move forward, we're the Cold Spring Dolphins. And so we're leading with purpose. Get that? Play on words. But, you know, purpose driven leadership, I think, is really important. And, you know, the purpose why we are here. Again, I go back to our vision, you know, every child, every opportunity, every day. And if you could keep your purpose of what you're doing at the front of your leadership, then you're able to move everybody at a much faster rate than not. So thank you for the opportunity.